you have to take that risk. It's a leap of faith.
It's a leap of
gut
faith.
feeling.
And when you feel it in your gut, you just have to, I think, go with it. I didn't know the terms personal branding and content creation when I started it on LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
I didn't. I'm this person who always wants to keep doing something. I have this chul. In Hindi, you call it chul. I'm a very chulbaz person.
SIPs are something that should automatically happen every month.
Because people want to listen to personal stories and they find people credible.
If you're actually looking at getting a new car, then there's one rule that we actually love talking about, and it's the 20-4-10 rule.
When you're entering the job market, the transition from college to corporate or campus to corporate, as we call it, can be very overwhelming.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Happy Hour with Fin Cocktail. Joining us today is a friend who we've made along the course of our journey at Fin Cocktail. She is an ex-management consultant, a career coach, and a star at creating content on LinkedIn. One of the few creators we know who has managed to monetize LinkedIn superbly well, and we don't even know how. Joining us today, Dhairya Gangwani. So glad that you could make it for this episode.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, firstly, Niyati, for having me here. I've been looking forward to doing this with you guys for such a long time. And glad to be a guest on season 2.
Superb. So, Dhairya, tell us, from a management consultant at KPMG to a career coach and a full-time content creator, only at the tender age of 25, how do you do it all?
No, I think you're kind enough to say that it's too much, but I feel that, every time that somebody genuinely asks me this, and a lot of people think that it's probably an outcome of having very good career clarity or clarity as a person per se, which it may be, but I think more than knowing that, okay, I want to do this or I want to segue into something, I've always been very clear with what I didn't want to do in life.
Correct.
And that elimination method, as we call it, really helped me in a lot of aspects. Is what when I reflect back on things and I think in retrospect, I realized that every time I had to make a decision or pivot in my career, because I think it's been 3.5 years now of doing this. And it's not a very long career to have, but in these 3.5 years, I've pivoted 3 times.
Correct.
And what I've realized is every time I've done it, the thought process behind it has always been a very conscious choice of weighing the pros and cons, understanding my career goals and where I see myself going, understanding my financial situation as well, taking care of what my long-term goals are, short-term goals are, and then eliminating everything I don't see fitting in.
Correct.
And then automatically, that's why becoming a management consultant, being an engineering student, it's very unconventional, but it came to me naturally because it was the thing that came out as an outcome after all the eliminations I did. Right?
Correct.
And while, so to say, you should be doing an MBA and then you get into these firms like a KPMG, Deloitte or whatever, that's the conventional route. I think because of the internships I did while early on in college and just making my entire journey application driven, I was probably able to get those chances early on. And then when I got into consulting, somehow certain aspects of how the job was paying me just money wise specifically, I think I was not very satisfied with how it was in a city like Bombay. I'm not from Bombay, and when I came here and I realized in Jan 2020 when my internship started with KPMG, I realized it's very expensive to stay in a city like Bombay.
Extremely.
And when you have this, obviously there was pressure, and then you have to make it on your own, you don't have any backup, you have to financially maybe provide for your family, that was the goal, and you're not able to sustain yourself. It's another added pressure.
Correct.
That's when I realized that, okay, the job's great. I got a role exactly the way I wanted. It was an amalgamation of tech and management, right at the place I wanted to be. Good brand to work at. But the pay was not good. It's the harsh reality.
Yeah.
And that mattered. At that point of time, it was very important. That's when I did not again consciously start this side hustle of Dhairya Decodes from the perspective that, okay, chalo isse paise aa jayenge, I'll get money out of it. No. Correct. The thought was, maybe I can do something else on the side that could build Dhairya's identity apart from being an employee at KPMG. That was the only thought process. And over a period of time, just doing things like creating content, then working with a lot of edtech startups, brands, starting consultations, going to different colleges, things just started falling into place very organically. And I think I did it 2 years from 2020 till June 2022 full time. as a side hustle, Dhairya Decodes with my full-time job. And then now it's going to be close to about 2 years this June where I would have quit my job and now I do it full-time.
Wow.
So that's how the journey has been.
Amazing.
Yeah.
But like you said, you had it at the back of your mind that you need to sort of earn to probably provide for your family.
Yeah.
You had to do it. In that situation, what gave you the courage to quit and pursue your side hustle as a full-time career opportunity? I mean, that's something that not a lot of people have the guts to do.
No, I think you're absolutely right, and I agree. And I'll tell you that when I made the move and when I took this decision, trust me, it has been one of the biggest steps I've ever taken. And I think it will always be. Because firstly, I told you what the situation was like at the job.
Correct.
So parents and family were obviously proud, and they know that I'd worked hard, and they knew that I was not getting my due credit or whatever there. But then the point was, a job comes with stability.
Correct.
It brings stability with it. It brings in a certain paycheck every month.
Correct.
And that's how a traditional Indian household functions and thinks.
Absolutely.
Fortunately, unfortunately. Especially my mom's side of the family, my Nana was a retired RBI officer.
Oh.
He served RBI for 33 years.
Wow.
Now, to him, his granddaughter, within 5 months of just working at KPMG, is saying, side hustle karungi, khud ka karungi.
Huh.
It's like, what is this? Like, for him, it was just being maybe too frivolous with your career, being too impulsive.
Correct.
And they didn't understand what I was doing.
Absolutely.
I would keep doing these sessions. And I did my first, so I've done about more than 600, 700 talks in the past 3 years. I have lost count now. And when I did the first 100 or 150 talks for free. No monetary incentive involved. And they were like, क्या करती रहती है ये? Right after her, her working hours, she's sitting and taking sessions. Saturday, Sunday भी 6 session करती है एक दिन में, वो भी free में. What are you even getting out of it, right? And in 2020, when I started, right when the lockdown had begun, at that time, to understand this digital career that exists today, which I also didn't know I'm getting into.
Correct.
I can imagine from their standpoint, it's very difficult to fathom and understand what it is. So they would just not know what she's doing, why she's doing, where is she going.
Correct.
So they were like, see, we don't understand what you're doing. All we can say is, don't leave the job. Don't leave the job. And that's why, just to keep that assurity and to keep them at par and bay, with understanding and giving them that time, I kept moving on with the job. I kept doing well there as well. I got a lot of early promotions. Everything was good at the job. I think there was nothing at the job that I disliked as such. I would say I loved the work I was doing. I was pretty good at it as well. But I think there came a point where I realized that from a learning standpoint and from a standpoint wherein my heart and my mind was continuously moving towards
Something
content
else.
creation and career coaching. When I would sit in front of the laptop, and SAP is a software I would work on, and I'm working on it, and I'm thinking of what the client wants in terms of the personalized, customized features. And my mind is on the script. I have to go and shoot, or there's a session in the evening. There comes a point where you realize that inclination towards something increases so much. It's better to put in all the time and effort into it completely, rather than being half-hearted at two different places, right?
Absolutely.
So when that point came is when I decided to quit. Not when, unlike, so it's not advice that I'm giving, but a lot of people will tell you when your side hustle starts giving you
something in
enough money,
return,
equivalent or more to your full-time job, you should quit. Yes, financially, yes, and ideally, I did look into that equation also. But if I just went by the amount of money I was making, I'll be very honest, first 5 months, max 6 months, I could have easily quit in the first 6 months only.
Correct.
Because anyways, the salary was not much, being
Correct.
very honest.
Correct.
But why I still stuck around for another year and a half was the learning there was very different.
Correct.
The learning as a career coach and content creator was very different. So I was growing as two different individuals parallelly, which I didn't want to stop. But the day I realized learning has stopped, secondly, my mind and heart is completely there.
Somewhere else.
Yes, it's somewhere else. So I was like, I can't do this. And that's when I realized, okay, now is the right time. I sat them down. I helped them understand. Obviously, I had to give them a peek into the financials, not the exacts, but I helped them understand it's not just a 1 month thing. I have been able to consistently, worst come worst case, at least make an X amount.
Correct.
And that is equivalent to or
What
more,
your
in fact, of what I'm
salary
getting
is.
through a salary. I'm not giving you false expectations that I'm making 10x. It's significantly more. And this, I know, has the potential of increasing every year or, every 6 months, that I can tell you. And then they were like, okay, when they started seeing the results, when I started working with a lot of big brands, started going to all of these colleges I dreamt of studying at, and when things started happening, and a lot of recognition in terms of from the students also, when their
Correct.
lives were getting impacted, right? Because in my profession and line of work, one session can get somebody a job.
Wow.
One session can literally change that person's entire generation. We don't think of it that way, but it is that kind of an impact.
Yes.
Because today, if that person has a job, the future generation is going to get affected by the
Definitely.
outcomes.
And they have a job that they like or that they're good at.
Correct. So that's when they realized, okay, there's impact, there's money, and she loves it, more importantly.
Yeah.
So it was a 2-year-long journey, but they realized, and I think they've been extremely supportive with everything that I'm doing. And today I feel more than my parents. I mean, they never had a lot of objection. Also my nani, because Nana is no more, but my nani is the happiest. She understands my career at this age so well today. Pehle, she couldn't even introduce or understand what my granddaughter does, but
Doing.
she understands everything that I do today. Whether it's a podcast shoot, she knows what's a podcast shoot, she knows Reels, she knows YouTube, she knows everything
So
that I do.
cute.
Yeah.
No, but I can totally relate because, a little bit of a peek into my own situation, it was like that. But for me, it was my dad who just did not understand what I was doing. Because I was working as a private banker for almost 6 years, 5.5 years. And I was doing well. I was making like
I'm
decent
sure a
money
good-
also.
yeah, amount of money.
The money was not the concern.
Correct.
But I just felt like my growth was stagnated. Like I was like, यार इसके बाद मैं क्या करूँ? मतलब where am I going to go in this firm? Probably senior VP, whatever. The next few rungs. But in terms of learning, it's going to be this only. There's nothing too much dramatically different that's going to happen, that's going to be life changing, and I didn't want my learning to just remain as it is.
Yeah.
And I was, it's easier said than done, but like you're fed up, right? You just want to do something for yourself,
Correct.
and that's where I came from. And my dad just could not understand that. He's like, you are leaving a job that is paying you so well to do something that is got no guarantee of money.
Correct.
And for us, we didn't have guarantee of money actually.
Yeah.
When we started off in
Yeah.
the middle of lockdown, we didn't know if there was any income even going to be coming in.
Correct.
We started off, I joined Siley when there were like 2, 3, 4,000 followers
Right.
on the page.
Yeah.
So there was no guarantee that this is
Something
even
would
going to monetize in the future.
Yeah.
So he just could not understand.
But don't you think that it is those risks that we have individually
It is-
taken in our lives that get us to this point, right?
Absolutely, you have to take that risk. It's a leap of faith.
It's a
a
leap of
gut
faith.
feeling.
It's a gut feeling. And when you
just
feel
have
it in your
to-
gut, you just have
You
to, I
just
think,
have
go
to go
with it.
with it. And eventually, like you said, your nanny is your biggest fan and
Yeah.
supporter. My dad is now my biggest fan and supporter. So he will tell any random person he meets, "Acha, Fin Cocktail,
Fin
you don't know,
Cocktail."
follow Fin Cocktail. देखो मेरी बेटी क्या करती है."
I know.
So they are your biggest cheerleaders now.
True. Because things turn around. I always feel with parents, they always think in the best interest of their children.
Yeah.
It's just that they need proof of work and that surety that,
Yeah.
okay, this person
And they
is
come
going
from a
to get what they
completely
want.
different generation. They're not
also.
understanding this.
Yeah, true.
This age of social media.
Yeah.
It's hard. Sometimes even I grapple to understand.
I didn't know this career existed 3 years back.
Exactly.
And today I'm in a career field which I didn't know the terms personal branding and content creation when I started it on
Absolutely.
LinkedIn. I didn't.
Absolutely. To be honest, till I started following you, I didn't know what a career coach was. So tell me a little bit about that. Like,
Sure.
you hear about like sports coaching,
Yeah.
and like some educational coaching classes. But career coach is something that I'd never heard of until I actually came across you.
Okay, great. No, why not? I'd love to tell you a little bit about it. So again, I'll also tell you one very interesting story behind this. I didn't call myself a career coach until I think the first year of doing this, because I also didn't know that I'm a career coach.
Okay.
Yeah, honestly. So I didn't know there's a terminology for this, right? So essentially, any individual who is helping you achieve your career goals and accelerating them, everything on the non-technical side.
Okay.
So you could be from any stream, any branch, any profession. Now, apart from, for example, let's take a software engineer, or let's take an investment banker, or somebody working in private equity. Now, technically, obviously, to get a job or to break through into this career or get into any company, you have to have your fundamentals correct. You will technically go through certain books, understand the financial markets, or a software engineer will learn coding, all of that. For that, you may want to technically reach out to somebody who can help you, who's a subject matter expert in that field. So that's different. But everything apart from the technical aspect, whether it's to build a resume, whether it's to understand how to switch in your career, whether it is you facing a confusion with respect to, oh, there's option A, B, and C, and I think I want to do either of these three things in life, but I don't know which one to pick. Or you've spent 5 years in a certain career path, and now you realize, you know what, one Saturday, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to move to something else. Or if you need help with, let's say, preparing for interviews, communication skills, everything on the soft skills side,
Correct.
personality development, career development, and professional growth, anybody who's helping you through it, who helps you land a job faster, is a career coach.
Correct.
But within that also today, there are many things, right? There are career coaches who specifically train mid-senior level professionals. There are career coaches who specifically help only freshers. There are career transition readiness coaches also specifically who specialize and only help you in transitioning. Right? Now, while in a way I would say more or less I do help in almost all of these areas, I have not given that kind of a very specific term to myself because I don't want to narrow it down that much. So I think as a career coach, essentially anybody between the age of 18 to up to 50, these are people I've coached in the past 3 years. On a one-to-one and a one-to-many basis, and any help that they need with respect to resume building a brand on LinkedIn for themselves as an employee or as an entrepreneur freelancer, reaching out to companies, doing job outreach, preparing for interviews, communication skills, all of this is what I help with. Yeah, so that is what a career coach essentially does.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So actually it's, I was going through, obviously as one does before any kind of an interview, I was going through your Instagram page and I came across this video which I found really interesting. One of your recent ones where you're saying that when you're applying for a new job, everyone always asks you why you're quitting, why you've quit your previous job. And what do you do? How do you tactfully answer that question? And I love the points that you gave over there. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. No, I mean, see, these are situations that you are going to find yourself in at some point of time unless you just decide that from the very beginning you're going to be an entrepreneur and never going to have to go through that situation, which I think 90% of the people probably don't go through because majority of the people are in the workforce. Now, the point is very simple. They are going to ask you this, why you have left your previous job. Why will they not?
Everyone
they want to know. The point is, now a lot of people will say, no, yaar, but you have to be very diplomatic or you have to tell the truth. Or you have to lie. I think there can't be any black or white answer to this. You have to get into the grey zone, unfortunately or fortunately, and answer it very diplomatically, yet you have to be honest at your core.
Correct.
What that essentially means is, as long as you concentrate on the situation, circumstances and the problem, and not the person who caused the problem, I don't think it should be problematic. Which means, if there was a problem with, let's say, the salary hike, just for example, you were not happy with the salary hike cycles or you were not happy with the salary altogether. So there's a way to say that my boss did not recognize my potential or they were not giving me enough hikes in all of these negotiation meetings.
But then you're making your boss the bad guy. You're making
your boss the bad guy, right? But if you can come to a place wherein it's all about articulation and framing. It's all about framing and articulation. The same thing can be said in a very tactful manner wherein you explain that overall the situation, let's say the funds were limited in a certain way coming in from the client because of which there was a pressurizing situation. The entire team in general was feeling that they were at a point wherein everybody in a way was not getting regular hikes, and I realized that I had a certain potential and I personally felt that I could probably work for another 6 months on myself, upskill myself and get to a better opportunity at that point of time because I had given in and tried all solutions internally that I could, and then I realized there's a roadblock because of certain external factors. You've not blamed the boss, you've not blamed a colleague, you've not blamed the company. Not bad-mouthed anybody, not used any negative connotation and still been able to get your way out of it. So I feel it's all about tactfully not blaming your ex-boss, ex-managers, colleagues, like I said in that reel also.
Absolutely.
Because see, as long as you don't play the blame game, you don't try to become the victim. Because think of it from the person who's interviewing you.
Tomorrow you will talk about them this way.
Tomorrow they will feel they are going to be at that place and you're going to be talking about them. So I think a lot of times if we did not think about things so technically and just applied common sense, these interviews also will become very easier than we think they are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So just shifting gears a little bit, while I'm an Instagram creator and that's why my go-to is always Instagram. I know that you are primarily a LinkedIn creator. And, you're one of the very, very few people who has managed to monetize so well on LinkedIn. It's something that we just haven't been able to figure out as a team. And it's our goal to sort of get to where you are. So tell us a little bit about LinkedIn. How did you manage to sort of monetize it? How did you first think of creating content on LinkedIn in the first place?
Sure. No, I think it's very interesting again. Nothing was thought through, nothing was planned. Like I said, there was this period wherein during the pandemic, I really had nothing to do because my job offer got deferred by 2 months.
Okay.
And that's when somebody just told me very randomly, I don't even remember that person, but I think credits to that person that I'm here. 3-4 people actually just who were in touch with me at that time in my circle on social media just told me that why don't you create content on LinkedIn? And I mean, I didn't even know what's content. I didn't know what's personal branding. And I'm like, why are you telling me to create content on LinkedIn? I have an internship and full-time job offer in hand.
Correct.
My logic was you go to LinkedIn when you're looking for a job. And when I had both through campus placements, it didn't make any sense. There was no alignment as to the math was not adding up.
Correct.
So that's when they said, no, you know what, you can create a personal brand, you can connect with professionals, and it can help you in general. Just give it a try. I think one day I was really bored. Very bored, had nothing to do, like I said, because I'd done 25 internships in college. I was not looking for more internships. I got an internship and a full-time job offer, and I'm like, what do I do? But I'm this person who always wants to keep doing something. I have this chul. In Hindi, you call it chul. I'm a very chulbaz person. There's no English word to it.
I love how chulbaz is a word.
I've created it myself.
Yes.
I'm always chulbaz. I'm like, kuch to karna hai. So when what next? So I'm like, okay, this person had said this. It just, came to my mind again. Chalo, let's post something on LinkedIn. Randomly posted something on LinkedIn. 20 people liked it in 4 days. I am the happiest person on earth. That 20 people are seeing me. I'm like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So I've always been this person who's been very content, It's not like I need to get to this. I didn't even know what's followers. I didn't know there's growth, there's algorithms. I'm like, great. And I continued. I never looked back. And I think because some now that when people ask me these questions, I realize because I never expected anything out of it, whether it was you want to call it fame, respect, recognition, money, everything came as a byproduct of it because I never thought of it to be either of the outcomes. It was just that I started enjoying that process of posting and writing on LinkedIn and creating videos on LinkedIn so much that things just naturally happened. But I feel, coming to your point of why LinkedIn, I already told you it was very random.
Correct.
But then slowly and steadily there came this awakening that I have this interest of mentoring students and working professionals.
Okay.
It's an educational niche. And definitely somebody who's serious about their career or wants to upskill would rather come to LinkedIn to find a coach and get their services than go to Instagram. That was my simple logic.
Absolutely.
Right? Or maybe second platform could be YouTube. Chalo, YouTube chala jayega, but on YouTube you'll go to learn, see tutorials.
Correct.
Get learnings. Maybe you will not go to book a session.
Yeah,
or something
absolutely.
like that, right?
Absolutely.
So that logic started playing in a little later. And then I think only when I did 15,000 followers, until then I didn't even know what are followers. And that growth had come in just 2.5 months, because back then in September end 2020 when I started, nobody was creating videos on LinkedIn. Even today it's very rare as a phenomenon for people to create videos. So people would say, you're mad, you're creating videos on LinkedIn. Who sees videos on LinkedIn? But I don't know. I was very natural in front of the camera. I love creating videos. People were liking it. And then when I hit 15,000 followers, I realized, okay, this is actually something substantial. I can do something with this. People are interested. They're liking the content I'm probably putting out. And that's when the journey started with respect to understanding monetization could come in here, right? I remember, in fact, when I hit 10,000 followers, the first brand deal, I was approached. Although the money was not very big, I realized there are brands. I was not taking anything up, but I realized that there are brands here also, but it's a very early game.
Correct.
It's this unfair advantage that I've always had on LinkedIn, because even now people don't know you can earn money on LinkedIn or brands
Correct,
are there
absolutely.
on LinkedIn, right? So that was too very early on.
Yeah.
So like I was telling you, what started happening was I realized that most of these speaking gigs and public, appearances, whether it's a panel discussion, a talk, webinar, and etc., which is very relevant to my niche at least, all of these opportunities started coming in inbound from colleges, at tech startups, and corporates via LinkedIn for me.
Right.
And how they would discover me was very interesting. So I realized it was a loop, right? It was a funnel.
Okay.
They would see one video or a post of mine, and obviously it resonated with them or they would like it. Then you go back to the profile, obviously, and see if other pieces of content are also interesting and if the profile in general also aligns with what she's saying on her
Correct.
posts.
Correct.
And when they found all of that matching and very interesting and compelling or let's say credible, then they would reach out to me on DM saying, what, we want you to come down to our college, take a session for our students or collaborate with our training and placement cell. And then I would say those organic collaborations started happening on the talking front.
Right.
So that became one aspect or stream of monetization, very
Right.
inorganically again. Just through putting out content, it takes time.
Correct.
But over a period of time, organically and in an inbound manner, it starts happening. You can also obviously go outbound after a period of time wherein you realize you've given a couple of talks and then you can very easily find training and placement cells of colleges, chapters, clubs, societies, and every company has a company page on LinkedIn and there are people there. So if you want to do corporate trainings also, you could always get in touch with the HR or L&D and training head and tell them that this is what I have to offer.
Correct.
So I realized LinkedIn is a great platform for lead generation. It's a great platform for getting speaking gigs and opportunities. And then slowly I realized brands are also there.
Correct.
Very few, very limited. They're skeptical, they're scared. They don't understand how the platform works, but they're there.
Correct.
And if you can show them the true potential and value that you bring to the table as a creator and how your audience is most relevant to what they are looking for, and explain to them why LinkedIn would be the right platform. It's a lot of work as compared to Instagram because you're
Absolutely.
essentially convincing first and then getting a deal.
Right.
But yeah, you had to do it early on, and even today I would say it's been 3 years. I've obviously seen the landscape change drastically. Brands that you could not even think of doing the biggest campaigns on Instagram and YouTube today come to LinkedIn, and most of them are still on that journey. A lot of them are yet to come. It's not even
Absolutely.
5%, I would say.
Absolutely.
But I think that's when I slowly realized this is another avenue. There are brand collaborations as well. And then slowly and steadily I realized you could probably do like, let's say, paid, audio events and shows and stuff as well. Because
Wow.
what's another interesting source of monetization for me, at least back then, for the first 2 years, the first person who actually placed his bets in a way on me early on in my career was through LinkedIn. So his name was Vishal Chandra.
Okay.
And he is an IIT Delhi alumnus. He was working on this startup idea back then
Okay.
called FIFO.
Okay.
And that was an audio first app, even before Twitter Spaces was a thing or apps like Clubhouse had come in. And all we had to do was he was looking for subject matter experts or people in each domain like finance, gaming, UI UX design, careers. And he wanted us to run these audio shows. And you had to do about 10 to 15 shows every month. And I did it for 2 years. I did 200 episodes of my career development
Wow.
series.
200.
Yeah. And I was getting paid for each episode. So it
Why
was
not? Yeah.
it was great.
Yeah.
And yeah, that became another source of monetization. And slowly and steadily I learned my ways around very unconventional ways to be able to make money from LinkedIn. And that's how it's been.
Truly unconventional, because like a lot of what you're talking about is something that even we haven't managed to explore yet as creators on LinkedIn. I mean, obviously we're very, very tiny.
No.
Where we're trying to grapple and find our way on this platform. But honestly, like you said, like it's very niche, right?
Very niche.
As a brand, we've been trying to create content on LinkedIn, but Siley has been trying to create. I don't think she's been trying. She's just been voicing her own thoughts and opinion on her personal page on LinkedIn, and that's doing so much better than us as Fin Cocktail. So it is a little bit of a sort of tricky sort of domain.
No, you got it right. I'll tell you. On LinkedIn, to build a personal brand, even for you, if you were to individually start, and then if you'll compare your page and Siley's page, they'll individually in general always at any point of time do much better than Fin Cocktail as a page.
Yeah.
Because that's just how the platform is designed.
Correct.
Fin Cocktail as a company page, like Dhairya Decodes, my company page, although I've stopped working on it only since 1 year, kuch content ही नहीं गया in the last 2 years. But even if I kept doing it consistently, the reality is company pages take a lot longer to grow on LinkedIn as compared to personal brands, because people want to listen to personal stories and they find people credible.
Correct.
So your pages will always do better.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's something that I didn't know.
Yeah.
Nice.
100%.
So tell me, what is that, one or two pieces of advice that you'd give somebody who wants to start off as a creator on LinkedIn?
I think three things majorly. The first one is you really need to understand, does it need to be your primary platform or can you come to it later? And it's a very important decision to make.
Sure.
Because I don't think it's made for everybody to be their primary platform, right? Mostly, I think if you are in any kind of a coaching, consulting, educational space, I think LinkedIn can definitely be one of your first platforms, or YouTube, either of the two. But again, you have to do a pro and cons analysis and see which one would fit better. I also feel today, even for someone like you, somebody in the finance niche, etc., it may not be the first platform of choice, but having a presence there will definitely help. And I would say it should be on priority.
Correct.
Because, I mean, think about it. Without, and I always say this, with no offense to any other platform and not demeaning any platform, because today I've been on I joined Instagram 1 year into being on LinkedIn. Till I didn't have a substantial base there, I didn't move there. I started YouTube actively 3 months back. So I'm on all three. There's no bias. The point is, the reality is that the most educated, wise audience is on LinkedIn. Because there are decision makers there. There are people from companies, VPs, stakeholders, startup founders. We have a prime minister there. We have different people who are
just add more credibility.
Just more credible in general. And hence the reason for them to follow you and your content will always be the value addition over anything else. Because on Instagram, somebody could be following you and me for XYZ other reasons we don't know.
Yeah.
And without getting into it, that's the reality. Because there's too much noise. There's noise on LinkedIn as well today. I know that. But even then, in comparison to other platforms, it's less. And hence, in any niche, I feel today, if you can build a presence on LinkedIn, it's great. But yes, obviously for somebody into baking, travel, fashion, it shouldn't be your first platform. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
But would you want to just use it as a personal journal, or to build like a personal connect with a separate, very close-knit fan base or community, whatever you want to call it? Maybe you can explore it that way, if not from a monetization perspective.
Nice. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So now let me get to the whole like finance angle and everything. Since you've successfully managed to monetize LinkedIn, you are a career coach.
Yeah.
What do you do with your personal finances? Do you have like somebody else managing it for you? Do you do it yourself? Are your mom and your sister and all of them involved? I know you're very close to them, so I'm asking how do you go about with managing your personal finances?
Yeah, very interesting question. I don't think I've kind of answered this anywhere as such, at length at least. So very interesting to reflect on it and then answer. I think, see, when it comes to my personal finances, I think for the first 1 year, when I just got into the job, it was pretty much about just getting that paycheck, putting that money in a savings account. I didn't even think about investing, had no idea you should be doing it. Nobody to guide me. In fact, I should be thanking Siley, because she's the one who put me in touch with my now wealth manager, who helps me with, my SIPs and everything else that I'm doing. But I'll come to it. I just realized slightly later, I feel again, but you always feel you're late. So first year I did nothing. I was just making money, putting it in a bank account, in a savings account. That's it. By the second year, when I started obviously making good friends and also getting in touch with people in the content creation industry, and thanks to finance content creators like you, I realized that no, this is wrong. I'm just stashing everything at one place.
Yeah.
I still feel I have a long way to go. And then I realized, no, I should be investing my money.
Correct.
And I should be looking at it from a long-term perspective and looking at wealth creation instead of just making money.
Correct.
And that's when obviously I got in touch with a wealth manager that was recommended by Siley, and then I spoke to her, told her what my long-term goals are, short-term goals are, what do my finances look like,
Correct.
Etc. I told my mother that I'm obviously doing this and I'm going to start investing now. I'll start with, SIPs and mutual funds. And obviously, while again, they did not understand so much about it. They realized that it's just a good instrument to put your money in to be able to grow it,
Right.
and you won't get immediate results. It is with the perspective of 10 years from now, 5 years from now, etc. So I started doing that. I'm not very regular with it, but it's not like I've stopped it. I've missed it for a month or two in the middle, but I think it's almost gonna be, I think, a year of doing it as consistently as possible. Apart from that, obviously, basic, your ATC, ATD investments, my PPF, and, the NPS, that is something I do every year. And now, at this stage, I think I'm looking at also maybe wanting to try out sovereign gold bonds.
Yes.
Investing there specifically, and that's something I'm going to talk about in the next few days with my wealth advisor, and also a little bit maybe into real estate. Those are two things I am inclined towards. I don't know when I'll do it.
Correct.
But as of now, that's how my money is being invested. I try and, apart from the rent that is to be paid and basic expenses in the house, and obviously a little bit of shopping expense and
Of course.
things here and there, I think the rest of the money is just saved and kept again in the bank account, which I think again can be put to better use.
Correct.
So I'm also thinking of how can I better utilize the remaining balance amount every month, maybe put it into a FD or do something else.
Correct.
Let's see. So
Right.
that's where I am at as of now.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there and just sort of reconfirm. Did you say you missed your SIPs for a couple of months in the middle?
I did. You're right.
Oh my god, rookie mistake. Dhairya, we have a conversation that we will have separately off screen about this, but
Sure.
please don't do this again. SIPs are meant to sort of happen every month automatically. So set them up in a way where in the first 10 days of the month, this money just gets auto debited from your bank account. There should be no control that you have over it. As long as your bank account has money, which it will.
I've done the exact opposite. I've told them that I'll manually do it. Don't automate it. I don't know why.
This is a rookie mistake. So no. So what you need to do is just link them to your bank account so that you
Okay.
don't have to worry about it every month. And usually in the first 10 days of the month, because what I prefer it that way, because it's money that gets invested early on. Because if you wait until the end of the month, there'll always be some excuse. End of the
That's
month
true.
is when you
When
always
you
have
have-
things piling up. ये भी खर्चा है, वो भी खर्चा है,
Correct.
इसका भी देखना है, उसका भी देखना है. Beginning of the month, you're like, अच्छा अभी तो पैसा आया है ना.
Yeah.
You're happy about that money, you just come and let it automatically get invested at that point only.
Yeah.
So this is one piece of advice that we constantly give everyone who talks to us about investments, that SIPs are something that should automatically happen every month. If you've set them up in a way where it gets auto debited, then you've nothing to worry about. It does its own job.
True.
You don't have any manual intervention only that's required.
I'm going back and
Yes,
getting this
please.
corrected.
Yeah,
Done.
and I think with the sovereign gold bonds, I think it's a great addition to anybody's portfolio, especially like 5-10% of your portfolio should be in gold. It's a great sort of investment to diversify your portfolio as well.
Right.
So I like your thought process on that. Go ahead. Maybe in the next financial year there will be another tranche that opens up. One just closed.
Okay.
So I'm hoping that in the next 3-4 months there will be something that will come up for sure on that front. So
Great. I'm looking forward to it. I'll keep. a tab.
Please just call us whenever.
I will. 100%.
So tell me a little bit about your brand name, which is Dhairya Decodes. How did that come about?
Yeah, very interesting story behind it. I think the brand name, now there are a lot of people who don't prefer having their name in the brand name, and I think it's a personal choice. Because it is a personal brand at the end of the day, and I'm the face of it in a way, and I go and do the trainings, I'm creating the content. And the idea was never to maybe turn it into a startup of sorts. Obviously,
Correct.
there is a team and there's everything, but I knew what I didn't want it to be. So I wanted my name to be associated with it, but I also wanted it to be interesting. And that's when very early on my sister suggested, D&D, and then you're decoding people's careers, you're decoding something. So maybe Dhairya Decodes could be a great name. And it just rung a bell. Everybody seemed to like it when I asked everyone in the family. And that's how the name was coined. And this was in September 2020 only. that's when I got the domain thing done also on Wix. So the website is Dhairya Decodes, the Instagram page is Dhairya Decodes, YouTube channel is Dhairya Decodes. Only my personal profile, obviously, on LinkedIn is Dhairya Gangwani.
Correct.
Everything else goes by the name.
But everyone, I think, knows you as Dhairya Decodes
Decodes
only.
only.
Like, that's the
I
first
know.
thing that comes to
Comes to
everyone's
the
mind
mind.
when Dhairya Decodes.
That's when we thought, the podcast, we were thinking, let's keep a different name. Maybe something like, but then again, I thought, when people have already started recognizing me over the past 3 years with it, why not just call it the Dhairya Decodes podcast?
Absolutely.
So everything goes under that umbrella and branch name only. And I'm obviously looking at trying to add more members to the team now, especially in the training vertical, because I think it's getting difficult to be able to scale it.
Correct.
I can only be at so many places
At
and
once.
give so many hours to a college, right? There have to be multiple people to be able to do things at scale, is what I've realized.
Right.
So I'm looking at delegating more and expanding that side, because content creation side in a way is sorted. I have a team in place who helps me with Instagram and YouTube, and LinkedIn I'm alone enough. But this side is something I'm completely managing alone since a very long time. So I really want to concentrate on that, and that's what we're trying to do in this coming year. The podcast and expanding the coaching and training vertical at Dhairya Decodes is what we're looking at doing.
That's amazing. Superb.
Yeah.
So you're always decoding things on your page.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would like us to decode for you?
Why not? Definitely. So I think it has to be something related to finance. I want to really understand what's your take on purchasing a new car versus, let's say, maybe a second-hand car versus renting out a car, because that is something I've kind of been in a fix of,
Okay.
and I'm trying to see what makes better sense. For me, in general, I just feel that, I don't know, I somehow feel buying a car in general may not be the best decision to make a new one. Just to look at it because it's a depreciating asset and stuff
Absolutely.
like that. But I don't know.
So
What do you
car
think?
is definitely a depreciating asset, and I feel like if you're going to stretch or overstretch yourself with the budget, then there's no need to do that just to buy a new car. You might as well get a second hand car and be okay with that, because eventually 4, 5, 6 saal jaake it's a depreciating asset. It's not going to fetch you anything. So if your budget is, let's say, 10 lakh rupees,
Yeah.
और 10 lakh में आपको if the car of your choice is not fitting in, then it's okay to get a second hand car in that budget.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with it. You get a lot of second hand cars these days which haven't which are in great condition.
Correct.
10,000 15,000 kilometers ही चले हुए हैं. Why not get a second hand car? Renting, I would say, might not be the most sort of sensible thing to do here.
Yeah.
Because you'll end up spending much more.
Okay.
Now, I don't know how much you're going to use this car, but if there is a use of this car on a daily basis, then I think buying is definitely better than renting. But I would say that definitely don't stretch yourself too thin just to, get like that fancy car. ठीक है, नहीं आ रहा है तो second hand ले लो, no problem.
Correct.
This is my take on it. This is
Got
what
it.
I feel.
That helps.
Yeah.
That really helps. No, makes a lot of sense as well. And I think I will accordingly make a decision after having a word with my mother and my sister. And
Absolutely.
we'll take a joint decision on this. But yeah.
It's great. You can definitely discuss this with your mom and sister. But if you're actually looking at getting a new car and if you are going to get a loan on it, then
Yeah.
there's one rule that we actually love talking about, and it's the 20-4-10 rule.
Okay.
So what it essentially says that 20% of the down payment you should be able to afford of the car, you should take on a loan for 4 years. Okay? And 24 and 10, the loan should not be more than 10% of your monthly income.
Okay.
The EMI.
The
on
EMI
the loan.
you're paying on the
The
loan.
EMI on the loan.
Okay.
So that's a rule that I think is a great benchmark to assess affordability.
Correct. Then I can know if I'm in a position to be able to afford that car.
Yeah. Sometimes, you don't want to spend that entire 10 lakhs ka saving in your bank account just to go and buy that
Buy a
car.
car. Yeah.
Loan pe lena ho.
Correct.
So then I think this is a great benchmark to assess whether you should go ahead with it or not.
Got it. That helps.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you, Dhairya, for being with us today. I think it's been a great chat and a great session. And I've got to learn so much about you, about your content creation process. And I want to end this session on an advice-giving note. Today's generation has a plethora of options when it comes to career,
Yeah.
when it comes to jobs. But what is what are the top 3 pieces of advice that you would give somebody who is entering the job market? And 3 pieces of advice for somebody who's looking to switch their job.
So let me start with 3 pieces of advice I'd give to somebody who's looking to enter the job market. I think the first one is to be very, I would say, sure of, not in the sense that this is the kind of company I want to work at per se. If you're unsure of the kind of company and environment you want to work in, it's okay. You navigate your way through it.
Sure.
But have some surety by the time you have graduated with respect to what kind of a domain would you like to explore at least for the next 2 years.
Okay.
I don't give people this unrealistic timeline of being very sure that for the next 5 years, 10 years, you'll be in that job.
Correct.
But at least have that clarity for the next 2 years. You can do this job every single day of your life. And you are that inclined towards it. So that's the first surety you have to have in your mind, and clarity.
Correct.
The second thing is that when you're entering the job market, the transition from college to corporate, or campus to corporate as we call it, can be very overwhelming, right? From attending lectures, partying, having a great college life, to suddenly moving to this responsibility driven situation wherein you're accountable, there's so much to do, there are tasks, you're dealing with stakeholders, is very overwhelming. So I think network with people at your workplace, not just within your department but outside of your department, and try and understand what it really takes to grow in this ecosystem. Learn from everybody around you.
Okay.
A lot of people don't concentrate on that, and they're just stuck in their routine, monotonous work.
Correct.
But the more you'll talk to people around you at any level, any department, the more you'll understand about how a corporate functions altogether, or how you are supposed to probably present yourself in the best manner possible in a corporate environment in your first job, because it matters. And I think the third piece of advice I'd like to give them is to continuously learn. Continuously learn. Whether your company is providing you an upskilling certification option or not, you should be personally at it. I would say, if not a lot, every 6 months, just gauge what's going on in the market.
Correct.
Where do you stand? What are the trends? Is there a new tool in the market? Is there a new software? Is there something you're lacking? Is there anything new you can learn from somebody? Are there workshops you can attend? It could be in a multidisciplinary skill or field also, apart from your job. You don't have to restrict yourself to the technical domain or the job you are in.
Correct.
As long as I think you're evolving as a human being and keeping up to date with everything that's happening, because it's not just with the advent of AI. All careers are very dynamic today. Things just change overnight.
Absolutely.
It's just important to be aware, keep doing your market research, and keep up to pace with the changing times. And that's what I mean by learning and upskilling. So if you keep doing these 3 things, I think that should be that should give you like a good head start into the corporate world. 3 pieces of advice for someone who's looking to switch careers. I feel the first one is to just come to this acceptance, which is very difficult for most people, that it's okay.
Yeah.
And wherever I put my heart and soul and effort and energy for the past 5 years, 10 years, whatever, 6 years in this one industry, you gave your best, you enjoyed it for a period, and now it's okay if you want to move on from it and do something different. That first acceptance level and coming to that surface is very difficult for most people.
Yeah.
Once that acceptance comes in and you're okay with it, and you're very sure of the level of inclination you have towards that new field, only then will you be able to move to step 2, which is to give in that amount of time and effort needed to upskill yourself into that new field.
Correct.
Because somebody moving from marketing to finance, or finance to data analytics, or data analytics, let's say, to software engineering, either of these, when you're making that shift, there is some amount of upskilling you will have to do.
100%.
Right? And to be able to do that outside of your work hours and put that extra effort, because most of the people are trying to, when they're switching careers, they don't want to get jobless. They do it
While they're
alongside their
working.
job, while they're working. So to put in those extra hours and given that time and maybe invest some money in upskilling also, you can only do it if you're truly invested in that new profession you want to get into.
Right.
And I think the third thing is, don't expect the same salary, the same role, etc. as you were at in your current profession. Because you spent 5 years to get there.
Yeah.
So don't set the wrong expectation. You will be considered as a fresher. And that is what you're exactly trading off things for.
Correct.
You have to realize there will be a trade-off.
Correct.
But again, there comes in how strongly inclined you are towards this, that you're ready to let go of those titles. You're ready to have that downfall, because there will 100% be a downfall.
Correct.
Someone who is a manager in marketing cannot join the HR department as a manager. And you will not have that level of salary. So once these 3 things are clear and you have clarity, anybody can make a career switch from anywhere.
You're right.
Yeah.
Wow, super. Thank you so much. I think this was really helpful. Thanks for being on our show, Dhairya.
No, I think it's been an absolute pleasure, Niyati. The conversation, I think, has been very free flowing. I really had a great time sharing my experiences and, kind of adding value in whatever way possible that I could. It's been a wonderful interaction, and I can't wait for the episode to go out. And I really hope that your audience can find some valuable
Value.
insights from it. And yeah, thank you so much for having me.
I'm sure everyone's going to love this episode.
Thank
Thanks.
you.